they're all relatively similar. They're the same sort of class of tank. In many ways, they were sort of developed jointly or with programs that had originally designed to be joint or integrated or based off common components, and then they diverged for a bunch of national reasons and production reasons. But I don't imagine that the actual task of learning how to operate one of these tanks is that much different from operating the other ones. The key difference, I think, would actually be not for the tank crew itself as much as for the tank mechanics. The Challenger and the Leopard can probably use essentially the same fuels. They're both sort of diesel engine based tanks. The Abrams is going to require a different type of fuel, and it's a bit of a gas guzzler. I mean, all main battle tanks are a bit of a gas guzzler. The Abrams, I think, is probably first in class at that. But adding Abrams to the mix just creates a requirement for a whole separate kind of fuel logistics line that if you had a pure Challenger Leopard sort of fleet, you wouldn't have. And the fuel for the Challenger and Leopards, I believe, is compatible with what the Ukrainians are using for their Soviet era tanks too. So they already have that infrastructure in place. I think that in this particular conflict, some of the biggest challenges for these tanks are going to come from being degraded or possibly destroyed by artillery fire, and the destruction of a tank from a precision guided artillery munition is much more likely than from a non-precision guided one. Although artillery fire can strip tanks of their optics, it can strip tanks of their communication systems, and it can foul some of their weapon systems. So you might not destroy the tank per se, but you might take it out of combat for a period of time while it repairs those things. The other sort of newer challenge is this ubiquity of small drones and other kinds of unmanned air systems that provide a top attack capability against tanks, and the top of tanks tends to be one of their more vulnerable points. We're not giving them enough tanks that they'll have these modern tanks everywhere that they might want them or need them. So they'll have to choose whether to spread them thinly or whether to wait and amass a large group of them and use them for a particular reason. And then if they do choose to sort of like bring them together for some sort of a heavy operation that maximizes the sort of density of these modern tanks, then it'll be a question of how they operate that. But if you could presume sort of a breakthrough of a more static defense and into a more mobile operation for even a short period of time, even for a couple of days, and we've seen those kinds of rapid advances from the Ukrainians before, then these tanks can be a significant contributor to being able to sustain the depth and pace of those kinds of penetrations. Ultimately, I don't think we can really speculate on whether this will change the game, but it certainly gives the Ukrainians a tool which allows them to do some things that right now they are challenged to do, or to do things they're already doing successfully, even more successfully.